Hi, my name is Olivia and I am a former river guide and student passionate about Idaho, rivers, Stanley, and water science. I want to see what changes are happening in my favorite place in the world with snowpack, with water temperature, with water health, with fish health. The Sawtooths are a super picturesque mountain range in middle of nowhere, Idaho. Stanley is a little rafting town with a drinking problem based out of there, and it's where I river guided for 2 years, and what really sparked my interest in soil and water science here at Montana State. I set out making this film to see if there are any changes in snowpack in that area over time. First of all, snow water equivalence is the amount of water that's available in the snowpack. So I looked at snow water equivalence charts over the years from 1971 to 2022, which is the available data. And what I found that snow water equivalence hasn't changed much in the area. So the amount of snow falling, pretty similar over the past few decades. However, what really worried me was what locals had to say about the changes that they have seen over the past 40 or so years. I wanted to ask someone who has seen Stanley change over time, and Kirk Bachman was the perfect man to talk to.
I'm Kirk Bachman, 1978. That's when I first moved up here and lived in the yurt. Those first winters were cold. I mean, got down to 60 below zero, and for an entire week never got above zero. Along the way, I started a company called Sawtooth Mountain Guides, founded that in 1985.
Sawtooth Mountain Guides is a legendary guiding company here in the Sawtooth Valley. Kirk's business model is one of lifelong education and appreciation for outdoor spaces. I asked Kirk about snowpack over the years, and what he said worried me.
Stanley set its seasonal high temperatures during the end of January. You're seeing more of those anomalies, and they're becoming more common. Climate scientists characterize climate change as having more episodic type events, and we have a really intense period of precip coming in, or big swings in temperature.
What Kirk said about swings in temperatures reminded me of Montana. Last snow year, from 2023 to 2024, was one of the worst snowpacks I've ever seen, with freeze-thaw cycles making the snow incredibly unstable. These climate patterns seem to be getting more common as time goes on. Anyways. Simply put, Kirk is a lovely man. He played music for me, he invited me into his home, a home quite full of history and magic. I left this interview feeling like I had just made a new friend. After my interview with Kirk, I headed down to Boise to start my new summer job. This summer I got to do stream surveys with the state of Idaho's Department of Environmental Quality. We ran into lots of hiccups, road closures, Mormon crickets, fires, lost gear, the list goes on. But the bad times were rare. More often than not, we were seeing amazing things every single day. Now, in order to collect a full range of data for the sites that we would sample, we would electrofish. That was my favorite part of the job. We'd set up our gear, hike to the site. Electrocuting the water with the right amount of volts would attract the fish to the big metal ring, the anode. Yay, good job! We'd net the fish, measure them, record their lengths and their types, and then release them back into the stream. Both. This summer, my coworkers and I sampled almost 40 streams in southern Idaho. These samples were a big eye-opener. Southern Idaho boasts many streams that are home to anadromous fish, which are fish that go to and from the ocean. So Chinook salmon, lamprey. One thing that came up time and time again in these streams was the temperature of the water. Fish are great indicators of stream health. These fish, called sculpin, love cold water, which is a great sign. Higher temperatures in water mean less available oxygen for fish. Chinook salmon, which are keystone species, need cold water to survive. They need about 18 degrees Celsius, and then they begin to get really stressed. This summer, the average temperature of our water was between 15 and 16 degrees, which is really pushing it in terms of stress on fish. One man that knows maybe too much about this subject is Tom Stewart.
My name's Tom Stewart. I've been in the Stanley area with family for almost 50 years.
Tom is involved with Idaho Rivers United and has a long career in fish and water conservation.
When I first arrived here, this was one of the mother lodes of salmon and steelhead fishing.
He told me about the massive amounts of fish that used to come through these waters. Chinook salmon, sockeye salmon, bull trout, the list goes on.
Since then, the fish here have declined to near extinction in this stretch of the upper Main Salmon River. Sockeye are on an extinction path, as are Chinook and steelhead at this point.
So why do salmon matter?
Their bodies decay almost immediately, and they fertilize the entire watershed, not only for their progeny, but for all the other species that live here. So what's the problem? Well, the problem, as it turns out, is the 8 dams between Idaho and the Pacific.
These dams create stillwater sections on the Snake River, which raises water temperature. As mentioned before, this is a big issue for fish health.
The hotter the water is, the more they die.
Native American tribes have gotten heavily involved with the push for dam removal the last few years, as they have treaties that grant them rights to fish these waters.
Native American tribes have really got involved in this. We have 4 treaty tribes, Nez Perce, Umatilla, Warm Springs, and Yakima, that have treaties with the U.S. government that guarantees them the right to fish and hunt in usual and accustomed places. But their fishing rights are meaningless if there's no fish.
One organization that's doing really incredible work that is intertwining Indigenous history and Idaho rivers right now is River New. They're reconnecting Indigenous use with the landscapes that they should be able to access no matter what. I did not get to interview this organization, but here's their website if you want to follow up. This conversation gave me a lot to think about, so I decided to head to the mountains to think. A big goal of mine this summer was to solo backpack and summit Thompson Peak. It's the highest peak in the Sawtooth and it clocks in over 10,700 feet. I tried to do this a few years ago and was turned around at the lake. I was pooped. This time, I bade my time a little bit better. I backpacked up to the lake and summited the next morning. I have a goal of getting up there. It's easy to be inspired by this place. I also probably should have brought bear spray, a knife, or anything to protect myself. Hey bear! But here we are, and I'm alive. It was an incredible experience. There was no one around. I got to see views that I have never seen before, and I got to challenge myself emotionally and physically.
You never told the depths you never know.
Being on a glacier!
It's coming
10,000
down.
feet.
Put your ear to the ground.
The water that drains from this mountain range feeds into the Salmon River, which is the Stanley community's livelihood. This was one of the highlights of my summer. I felt very proud of myself for knocking off a goal that I've had for years and being able to say that I did it all by myself. The bond between the landscape and the people is strong here. Snowmelt for the Sawtooth is a main flow contributor to the Salmon River, which is a means of income for much of this town. Jared Hopkinson owns multiple companies here in Stanley and is passionate about the business community in this small town.
My name is Jared Hopkinson. I've been in Stanley for 24th summer. I used to have a paper atlas in my truck, and it had Stanley circled. It was like heaven.
I worked for Jared as a river guide for 2 years, and one thing I really loved was how many women I got to work with as a guide. Your companies have a majority female guides. Why do you make an emphasis on that?
Just to be straight, like girls keep it classy.
When I guided at SAC, I loved how many girls there were. You'll get comments from people that are like, I didn't know girls could do this. It's been satisfying to be able to show people up and actually I'm perfectly competent. What is your favorite part of the Stanley community?
As I've gotten older, I very much appreciate the business community. We're super tight, so everybody helps each other out. You're very welcome.
Good doing business with you. Jared's businesses are based upon the watershed and are pretty darn profitable. So is the entirety of the Sawtooth National Forest. According to the U.S. Forest Service, visitors to the Sawtooth National Forest spend $81.5 million annually. The health of the environment plays a key role in the Stanley economy, and so do the people that live in it. I also had a lovely conversation with Laura Antonello, who owns La Acera, an empanada truck, and it's absolutely delicious. Laura brings a zest to life that is so rare you just can't help but smile when you're around her.
It's like an angel. I'm like, my name is Laura Antonello, and I have lived in Stanley for 7 years now. I have low-key had this dream of opening a food truck since I was like a little kid. And so in 2022, I put all my eggs in that basket in the spring and found a food truck in Salt Lake City. I think I bought this in May and opened in June, which is madness. And here it is 3 years later. There's this book by Jedediah Jenkins called like Streams to the Ocean, and in it he mentions you can love something and do it and not be successful at it, but you have to pick the thing that you love that loves you back. And I landed on empanadas because it felt like maybe it would love me back a little bit. Yeah.
Thousands of people pass through Stanley annually, and a lot of those people are Hispanic. Laura mixes her Cuban-American heritage with her love of food to bring traditional Hispanic food to the community.
Living in rural Idaho is funny with that background because not a lot of people relate. Like a big part of why I wanted to open the cart was because I wanted to be able to connect with the Latino population who I knew traveled through here. What little sprinkle of fairy dust can I add to Stanley that's like actually uniquely me? One of the specials I come back to a lot is carnitas. It's just slow cooked pork, and the marinade I use is my great-grandmother's recipe. So yeah, great-grandma, grandma, mom, me. I learned how to do it in that order. Yeah, that whole line of women is from Cuba.
Throughout our interview, Laura interacted with probably a dozen people. It's obvious that she's a key part of the community here.
Aw, so good.
Have you seen anything that makes you worried or aware of a warming climate?
Yep, we're all noticing it. I think overall trend since I've been here is that the seasons have shifted. Okay, snow used to stick in November. Now it's like mid-December or end of December. And last winter was by far the worst snow condition for what it should be here. It just didn't snow for a long time. The guide industry for backcountry skiing definitely suffered quite a bit. I mean, this summer, July was in the 90s most days. Like, that doesn't happen. No. That's not normal. This ecosystem's worth fighting for always. Stanley's such a special place. It's like one of these places where you have to be in it to understand it.
The Stanley community relies on a healthy watershed for their livelihood. The state of the water ecosystem directly impacts the wellness of the people who live here. Everything in Stanley is connected. The economics, the water health, the mountains, the people. As Jared said, everyone helps each other out. To make true environmental change, we have to understand that all of these elements build on one another to create a better future for our water systems and for our communities. I set out making this film to learn a little bit more about Idaho water, Idaho fish, water quality, and I learned a ton more than I thought I would. And I hope you did too. When it comes down to it, Idaho waters are doing pretty alright. The things that worry me are changes in climate, increases in temperature of water, and a lack of awareness for these issues in the general public. Here's some advice from the people I got to talk to.
You have to keep an open mind, and you have to listen to the people who don't agree with you.
Turn off your TV.
Follow your heart, follow your passions. If your heart tells you there's something wrong, engage your passion and try to fix it.
Thank you for watching and caring about water and community health in a small Idaho town. I'll see you in Stanley.